three. Taking his sweet time. Two, and one. Okay, all right. Good, everybody. Hope everybody's doing good today. And today we're going to have some great discussion with our resource personnel. I mean, they've been in the art for God knows how long, and they've really contributed their quota. And of course, they continue to contribute their quota towards the development of the performing arts in Ghana and of course across Africa and even the world. I'm going to start with Dr. Ayiram. If I mispronounce your name again, please let me know because I want to make sure that I'm doing the right thing. All right. So Dr. Ayiram holds an MPhil degree in music from the University of Ghana and a PhD in ethnomusicology from the University of Cape Coast. He is a lecturer at the Department of Music, University of Ghana, Performing Arts, where he also teaches various courses in music, Ghanaian music, and traditions and all that. Yeah. Of course, I know you've been doing some performances here and there too. So I'm not sure whether that actually encapsulates everything. That's Dr. Fiagbeji. Dr. Sarah Dogbaji is a professor at the University of Ghana, Theatre Arts Department. She's currently, I think she's been doing some works in storytelling, KTK, sharing the traditions of storytelling to the current generation and trying to revive that, beautiful, as it is, by the fire rake moment, if I should say so, to also give information on the various moral values within our ethnic, our traditions and all that. So I know you've done greater works. We appreciate you for coming to the show. And Uncle Terry Bright Ofosu, we always call him. I mean, I came to meet the uncle. I'm not sure how the uncle came into being, but Uncle Terry is a staunch member of the Department of Dance Studies. He's done greater works in Afro-pop studies, Afro-pop dance, and currently waiting his results from the PhD results, which he did through the Institute of African Studies, University of Ghana. He's done so many works in Afro-pop and also with, what do you call it? I always want to remember this particular thing. Michael Jackson. Yeah. Great to meet everybody here. I know we Dr. Professor Amwa was supposed to join us, but for some reason he couldn't join us today. But I know we're going to have a very interesting conversation on celebrating Kwame Nkrumah's contribution to the performing arts in Ghana and of course beyond Ghana. So now I know that Kwame Nkrumah purposely established the Institute of African Studies. Probably we can start from the Institute of African Studies to as it were, build or continue the legacy of preservation of, tradition or culture. And through that, the School of Performing Arts was born. I'm not sure if I'm correct. So how important was this establishment in, especially taking it from the establishment of the Institute of African Studies and bringing it down to the birthing of the performing arts at the University of Ghana? I'm not sure who wants to start, but anybody can take, you can start.
All right, so maybe I'll start.
Okay.
Prof. Omar Labi would have been the right person. Yeah, since he's not here. Yeah, I would start. So I think we all know how colonization impacted on our people in terms of education, in terms of our orientation and the stereotyping, to the extent that anything and everything about the African was heathen. I mean, was not worthy of, continuation and all that. So Kwame Nkrumah, I think when he came into power and after independence,
I think your volume is a little bit low. I'm not sure whether it's on my side or
I think it's from your side.
Oh, it's from my side?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I can hear him clearly.
Okay. All right, great. Then it's from my side. Yeah, we're good. Then let's go. Okay.
Yeah, so he made deliberate policies that will revamp our tradition, our arts and culture, because he believes that we can only develop as a people if we really employ our arts, employ our culture, and we made it more relevant. And the educational system then was very Eurocentric. I mean, nothing about African, so nothing so much about African was learned. I mean, to the extent that even Dr. Buzia even admitted when he was in Infante Pimenachi Mota that, I mean, the education he had was so good, but it made him learn a lot or know a lot more things about Europe and Europeans than about Africa and Africans. So Nkrumah thought that this was an opportunity to create this institute where our value systems, our languages, our arts and culture will be researched into, will be studied, so that the values therein, we use that to educate our people so that we can break away from this Eurocentric mindset and education that the colonial masters brought to us. So I think it was very important because the institute was research on our African arts and traditions. So basically, I think as starters, this is what I will say. I will allow my fellow panelists to come in, then we can continue the conversation.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's balance the equation so my voice will be heard.
Okay.
So following on from where my colleague Ayram Fiagbeji left off, I would like to make some contributions regarding Nkrumah's ideologies. You would realize that in his era, the national cultural policy was formed. And this policy was supposed to, there was one form, I think the first one was by Zankitia, and then later on down the line, Abdallah's, Rawlings's era, Abdallah did one. But that first one had a clear-cut guideline as to how we can harness our arts to carry the message of our the concept of the new African that Kwame Nkrumah sought to communicate. He is one leader who very carefully and strategically developed strong relationships with artists. We can talk about Kwame Nkrumah's relationship with Kofi Antubam, for instance. The carving of the presidential seat, was by Kofi Antubam, an artist. Kwame Nkrumah was one politician who went about his political campaigns with concert party performers. This is how important it was for him, and so he really immersed himself totally in the arts. We have many pictures of Kwame Nkrumah dancing bobobo, for instance. Right. Bobobo, yes, bobobo, he loved bobobo very much. And the origins of bobobo can be traced into the development of high life, So it cuts across completely all the genres of art. He let's not forget about his relationship with Sutherland, the National Theatre movement, the establishment of the drama studio at the original position before it was transferred to the University of Ghana campus. You know, so many things can be attributed. In fact, when you read his book on, is it conscientiousness, or I've forgotten the title, something like that. There's a whole portion dedicated to the development of the arts in a way that one cannot ignore. You know, when you read his speech on the African genius, his intention for the arts and the development, the importance of developing the arts and the humanities in general was so clearly laid out. You know, he did not mince the fact that the way I put it, we thank God for the experiences of Western educationists and their theories. There's nothing wrong with it, but it is informed by their own circumstances and their experiences and aspirations, which is suitable to them. But we need to develop our own. We need to develop our own. And if we are carrying a certain image of ourselves, how well can we do that if we ignore the arts? So the arts became a very strong window or mouthpiece for the development of our culture and the perceptions and of the philosophies and how we intend to bridge that into academia, into mainstream and education. Let me also pause here and let Uncle Terry, because I can go on and on and
all right. Okay.
I was enjoying the flow. I was just enjoying. Interesting.
All right. Yeah, Uncle Terry will. Okay, Uncle Terry, go ahead and come in, and then I will pick some points from what has been said so far.
Okay, so what I would add to what Dr. Sarah and Dr. Fiaboji have just put across is the fact that we have to understand Kwame Nkrumah's background. You know, this is a guy who schooled in Europe and then later on in the US. And so they saw himself and people like Frantz Fanon, Leopold Senghor of Senegal, Amilcar Cabral, the Congo, and all those people. These were people who were linked, you understand? And most of them have schooled in Europe and then in the Americas. And therefore, they had seen racism at its highest level. And so it is said that Kwame Nkrumah was part of these African activists in Europe. So he came back here with that at the background, and he realized the importance of us creating our own character, our own understanding. Luckily for him, after independence, we shifted into an era or a new paradigm they call the post-colonial development. And post-colonialism has to do with the new approaches to scholarship and how the Western people had denigrated us, and how we are supposed to create our own understanding of academia, our own understanding of epistemology and all that, our knowledge systems, how we can apply them, in the broader global knowledge systems. So Nkrumah's approach, therefore, had to do with what he called character. Now, this in his speech, okay, in some of his speeches, he postulated some educational philosophies. For instance, Nkrumah said that the creation of a university, at the university dinner speech in February 24th, February 1963, Nkrumah said that the ideals for a university are: one, pursuit of knowledge. The first one is pursuit of knowledge, which we all know and we are all aware of. Now, the second one is formation of character. Formation of character. And that, for me, is very profound. Formation of character will therefore tie into what Kwame Nkrumah called the African personality. Okay. And in order to create an African personality which is different from the Western personality, we have to dig into what belongs to us, and therefore the importance of the arts and culture. And so he found that very necessary to have, first of all, an Institute of African Study. And then within that, created what we call the School of Music and Drama. And also what at that point was called the National Dance Company, which was later changed to the Ghana Dance Ensemble. You understand? So he tied the development of Africa into the arts. Now, when you read some of his compatriots like Amilcar Cabral and their writings, they were so much interested in culture. And they found the fact that culture was very essential, in fact, quintessential in the development of Africa. We cannot develop without incorporating and putting culture at the forefront of our agenda. And that is what Kwame Nkrumah sought to do. You understand? And therefore, the creation of the School of Performing Arts. So it's important to know that Dr. Sarah said something about Nkrumah relying on Bobobo and concert party during his. Nkrumah is the African leader who, when Palogo and Bobobo were created, you know, the elderly citizens kicked against it. Okay, they said they were vulgar. They said Palogo was vulgar, Bobobo was vulgar. And when you watch Bobobo, the way they shake their body and all that, you watch Palogo, all these, because they have all something about flirtatiousness. You understand?
Yeah.
So the elders in the land repudiated Palogo and Bobobo. And so Nkrumah had to invite the Ghana Dance Ensemble to Flagstaff House and ask them to come and perform so that he will see whether this thing is really vulgar or not. And after Opoku and the dance ensemble went to perform, he looked at it and he said, come on, go and perform it across the nation. There's nothing vulgar about this. And that is how Palogo today is claimed as a traditional dance. It was through the effort of Nkrumah. It would have been killed. You understand? At that time, it was a popular dance. You understand? But now it has transcended what we call pop, and it is now a traditional dance of our country. So Nkrumah is very, very instrumental in the development of the arts and culture.
Wow, great. So maybe feeding on from, I'm going to start from some of the comments that you made, Uncle Terry, and then later on we'll come back to everyone else. So strengthening Kwame Nkrumah's idea of strengthening cultural values through the university versus strengthening them through the tradition itself. What do you think, or which one do you think that would have been more effective? Because of course, when tradition is moved from its bearers to a new space, there is some breaking of boundaries here and there and all that. So with that idea that, okay, building the School of the Institute of African Studies, through that birthing the School of Performing Arts and all that, has that impacted the preservation of tradition as he wanted? Or if it was maybe ingrained in the tradition itself, would it have been stronger? Looking at current, way that, people look at the performing arts, or maybe we can talk about music or theater or dance.
Okay, so
okay, I mean, if you want to go first, that's fine. But
okay, so
yeah. I mean, you can go. You can go.
Let it go.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So yes, I think what Nkrumah didn't only focus on education at the tertiary level with the Institute of African Studies, but even before the Institute of African Studies was established, there had been a lot of efforts in the communities, or if you like, at the local level, at enhancing our traditional arts and culture. So there was the institution of Arts Council, for example, or there was a committee that was supposed to implement the policies that Nkrumah wanted to bring about, or that he brought about. And through the activities, they were really on the ground. You understand? They had free drumming lessons for people who were interested, free traditional dance lessons, etc., etc., etc. These culminated into the formation of new ensembles, traditional ensembles. You understand? So there was that encouragement for people to love, and
even within the tradition.
Within the tradition, exactly. And one thing Nkrumah did was that he tried to bring down various ethnic differences, to bring everyone together as one people. You understand? So he ensured that all the traditions were developed to the extent that there were competitions. They had annual competitions for dance bands, annual competitions for drum dance ensembles, competitions for choral music groups, competition for brass bands, all these categories, for poetry and storytelling and all that. So you saw that it was an elaborate effort by Kwame Nkrumah to really ensure that we really appreciate our arts. But I think the problem he had at the end of the day was that he realized that the way he wanted the arts to be treated was not being treated that way. Because for him, he understood, or his vision was that we should learn our arts, we should learn our culture, and know the values within these arts and culture, so that we can harness the values for economic and cultural development, if you like. But what was happening rather was art for art's sake, if you like. So people watch it, they experience it, and they appreciate it, the aesthetics in the Western sense, yes, rather than, dealing with it the way Kwame Nkrumah wanted, harnessing it and using it as a tool for unity, as a tool for development, etc., etc.
Okay, Dr. Sarah.
Yes. So I think just to continue from where Dr. Fiagbeji left off, I think what the agenda was a way of adapting the formal educational system, which used to be a mouthpiece for the colonialists, to now make it our own. That is why it was important to use also the formal education structures instead of only promoting it in the communities. Because if he did it like that, then the scholar will feel alienated from the community. So whilst it was going on in the community, there was need for it to find expression, and continuation also in academia. The point is that the institution of the cultural practice in academia made the development of academic thinking culturally based. So if we missed that point, because even today, what do we see? After how many years, what do we see? If you write a paper and you don't cite a Westerner, a Western philosopher, a Western proponent, then your paper is not good enough. We are still struggling with that, But then what we see, our interpretation of life and our experiences are culturally based. So we should find the links and the voice, the vocabulary to express our role in the domain of academia. I think that was a very important move. So for want of a better example, even if the computer scientist, if he wants to develop a program that program should have cultural practices and should be able to fit into the culture. For instance, if you develop a software, that software should be friendly to the tomato seller in Makola or to the Agbalimo seller in Malata. Things like that would make, that was a good concept from where I stand, to develop the culture to the level where it is comparable to Western practices in the arena of academia. That is what I think was the drive, but whether we succeeded or not is another matter.
That's interesting. I'm not sure whether Uncle Terry wants to come in, but then how do we actually
manage? Hand up though.
Oh, yeah. I wanted us to finish real quick, and then we can actually jump into question and answer. So Eugene, Eugenie, I'm going to come to you very soon, pretty soon, because Dr. Dogbaji, I got it today. Dr. Dogbaji is going to be out in a moment, so because she has other engagements. All right, so now how do we, realizing the thoughts or the vision of Kwame Nkrumah, and having the space to also share through the cultural, share to the current generation, the cultural values through our arts, our dances, our music, our drama, and all that. Are we using that as a module to connect back to Kwame Nkrumah's vision? Is there an effort to collaborate to actually achieve these this grand vision of Kwame Nkrumah in the first place?
Whom are you addressing? Okay.
Uncle Terry, you're still muted.
So I was asking, when you say collaborate, who are we collaborating with?
So with the various institutions, like the dance department, or I don't want to make it even smaller, like dance department or theater arts or even music, but let's say the institution of dance, drama, performing arts, theater and music. Is there an effort to, trace back to these grand ideas of Kwame Nkrumah? And if there is, how is it done?
Okay, so I have a personal view concerning this issue of how there should be some kind of synergy between the various arts, art forms, dance, music, drama, and all that. For me, I think what Nkrumah wanted to establish was, especially as far as the university is concerned, was come up with or produce university students or graduates who cut across music, dance, and drama, because our practice was total theater. So in our practices, we had music, we had dance, all integrated. So for me, I think that the School of Performing Arts should have had a model, produce some students who come out purposefully, come out as people trained in music, dance, and drama. As a model, it's an African model that originally Nkrumah wanted to produce. But it looks as if over time, we have separated. Okay? And we are saying that music stands on its own, dance stands on its own. Yes, we have people who can stand on their own. But we should have had a model that we could create. And that is an African model. And that is my belief. An African model where we produce a scholar from the university who is in total theater. The person can dance, he can sing, or he can play any musical instrument, can act, and all that. That is an African model for us. And this is what we should have pushed to the world and say that this is the difference between us and you. You get my argument. But unfortunately for us, I think over time, and even today, when you want to combine dance and drama, it's a big problem. I learned Dr. Sarah is trying to change that. I don't know how truthful that is, but for me, that when you talk about collaboration, that is what comes to mind. And so probably, I don't know, maybe with time, we would recognize that. And because for me, it is a big issue, you know, why we have failed to have established a certificate or a graduate certificate or an undergrad certificate for a total theater personnel as an African model. You know, Bebikwe is giving me signs here that the diploma program, our diploma program was modeled after that. You understand? Yeah. So that for me is an issue. I don't know what Dr. Fiamweji and Dr. Sarah would say, but yes, for me, I think that
I know Dr. Sarah, Dr. Dogbaji would want to leave very soon, so I would want her
have
to
my say. I agree with you totally, Uncle Terry, as everybody calls you. Yeah. So the thing is, you know, my field of research is folk aesthetics. You see, and so when I go into when I begin to work, I begin to identify my own weaknesses. And so I'm forever looking for sources from dance and from music. Because when you're talking about folk aesthetics, it is an amalgamation of everything.
That's right.
The person is a cantor, is a narrator, is an orator, is a dancer, is a player, is a singer, is an everything.
Exactly.
And that is part of the culture. You know, so I asked somebody, so how do you learn these songs? It says we don't learn it. The history is there. We all know the history. I said, but the melody, he says, we all know the melody. The melody is part of the language. Do you see? So once you speak the language, you can generate that melody and begin to recount the history. Do you understand? And how do you, I mean, we need to grow to that. This is where, Uncle Terry, this is where I'm advocating that we have to blend somewhat. There has to be a point of confluence for all three training grounds so that we can arrive at that point. Because if we train students who cannot fit back into the society, then we have created a monster. I keep saying that. So where will that person belong? Do you see? And so if we have taken the baton to lead the development, and you see, culture is dynamic. Culture changes according to its own need for change. So we should be sensitive to these needs and be the advocates. But we cannot successfully advocate for these change and developments if we are fragmented. This is the point. It is at this point that I'm agreeing very strongly with Uncle Terry, and that is why I'm advocating that we should find concrete, not just conversational, concrete grounds where we can meet and work together.
I am very happy that you are agreeing with me. And I think that marks the beginning of a new thing. Yeah.
Yes.
I think that we all agree on that.
Yeah.
So we have to.
Yeah, because I mean, going back, when you say, of course, in Twi, I don't know whether there is a particular word for that puts everything together, music, dance, and theater. But agro, for instance, when you say agro in Twi, which is maybe in literal terms you say play, right?
Yeah.
It is not just dance. It is not just the theatrical aspect or the music. Everything combined. I mean, I stand to be corrected, but if that is the case, I think that, I mean, it goes well to establish the fact that there should be a strong force in that area, because I don't know whether even in the outside world there is something like that in various academic fields or in the various universities where a student is actually all-rounded in music, in theater, and in dance, and not a major and minor, but all three being major. I think it's going to be an interesting thing to discuss. What do you think, Dr. Fiagbeji?
Thank you very much. I was going to say that I would like Dr. Fiagbeji to answer to that question, because I know that a lot of the music people cannot dance to save their lives.
All right. Before you come in, Doc, I would like to say that Dr. Dogbaji has an engagement and she would like to take a leave. He's not intentionally going
with a very heavy heart.
Yeah, very unfortunate.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
we'll
thank you very much. Yeah, we'll continue. Yeah,
yes.
definitely.
Okay.
Someday.
Thank
somehow.
you.
All right.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.
All right. So yes, thank you. I wish Dr. Dogbaji had stayed for a little while.
Mm.
Yeah, because
maybe she'll watch it later on.
Yeah, because I have a divergent opinion as to some of the issues. So originally, the School of Music and Drama, as we know it now to be School of Performing Arts, the idea was for it to link the university with the national theater movements. So there will be that synergy, that relationship, symbiotic one. So then there is that association or collaboration, but that has been lost, or that is missing as we speak now. They are all on their own and they are doing their own things, and that is very unfortunate. And it's a departure from the original intentions of the cultural policy and the institution of the African studies. But about the issue of training a total theater person or people who will be all round, yes, that is an idealist perspective. That should be the ideal situation. But you will notice that they say jack of all trades, master of none. Even in our traditional societies, there are drummers. In an ensemble, you have cantors. They are the singers. They are those who sing. You have drummers. You have dancers. There are those, a few who can drum, dance, and sing. There are those who can dance, but they can't sing. They will always sing out of key, out of tune, and all that. So coming from this perspective, I will want to agree that it is good that individuals, or we train people to have their specific area of expertise. If the person is a musician, the person should focus on that music. Of course, a little minor, a little idea about drama, dance, and all that, it's very good. So after they've gone through this training, you have dancers, you have theater persons, and you have musicians. The idea is for these people to be able to come together and collaborate. So they have three expertise from three different fields. When they come together, I think they can come up with a very huge production, rather than one person being a master of everything. You understand? As Uncle T mentioned, I won't say all, but a number of music people who have issues with dancing. I mean, they just would not be able to dance. And it's not their fault. It's because they have consistently been involved in maybe the mental and whatever emotional attachment to music and rhythm. You understand? So that is where I depart from my my senior colleagues.
Okay, so your collaborative idea should be, at the end of the day, we have music, we have theater, we have dance. Then they come together, not from the developmental stages or the educational, maybe from the academic point, but it should be from maybe the end game. They have graduated, or we have expertise from these areas. Then the collaboration can actually happen, rather than having a system within academia or within the performing arts where we can have one person specializing in all these three.
No, I think the collaboration starts within the academia. I mean, you see the students right from first year, second years, they are doing their productions. Some are more formal for grade or academic purposes. Others do their own private stuffs, but they get to see potentials in their colleagues doing dance, doing music, doing dance. And I'm sure this is the essence of the BFA program. And here, I guess we are narrowing our discussion to the School of Performing Arts now. So that's why there's the BFA program. So in the first 2 years, all students get to do music, dance, and drama or theater arts. So you are exposed to all these three areas. First year, second year. By that time, students would have developed interests in their specializations. I want to do music. I want to continue with dance. I want to combine. I want to do theater and all that. So from 300 going, they begin to find their level in terms of areas of specialization. But note that within the first and second year, they have been exposed to all three. So even when they graduate, they are graduating with some knowledge about the other fields, but they are graduating with a lot of knowledge in their specific area of expertise. So what I'm saying is that within the university, the students themselves, there are collaborations. Sometimes there is a musical theater. For a musical theater, you need a music person. You need a dancer, a dance person. You need a drama or a theater person. Even the stage work, those who would prepare the stage and costume and all these. It would be difficult to have one person, saying that he knows it all and doing everything. Even if you are the director, you will still need people, in the various areas, the sound and all that. Yes. So
okay.
Okay, so can I come in quickly?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so as much as I would have agreed to some extent with Dr. Fiagbeji,
yes.
You see, the issue is that model that we are talking about, the BFA, is just a little divergent from the Western model. It is not an African model. It is a Western model where you go into your stream, dancer, musician, drama, actor. You understand? We have an African model, which is what we expect to bring to the table of the world instead of following the Western model. So, of course, they have learned maybe 1 year, 2 years of dance, and then the person goes to music or drama. When it is time for a performance, you will come and call. Yes, we are still going to have mainstream dancers, mainstream actors, mainstream musicians. We are going to have that. But this is an African model purposely for Africans. This Western thing is for Westerners. You understand? Of course, when you go to the traditional societies, you get drummers who are drummers, basically drummers. But majority of them who are performing can be audiences. They can be dancers, they can be singers, they can go on to the drums. You understand? I'll give you a typical example of one of our students, such as a Kweku Boateng. Kweku Boateng directs choir. He teaches people how to play the flute. He did choreography. He is one of the best orators in poetry. Okay, he's one of the best singers that I saw. Not in voice, but he can sing. He has a band now, but he did choreography. He was one of the best choreographers. That person need an African model certificate because the guy excels in all the areas. And there are several people like that who have come through the School of Performing Arts. And because we don't allow them to be able to have that total theater certificate or undergrad certificate, it is difficult. And therefore they have to go into this mainstream Western model kind of thing. This is Africa. We have to have something that belongs to Africa. Damn the whole world and let them go with what they are doing. This is ours. You understand? We have to have a model. And it doesn't matter if the person can only sing and can dance and can act. We create that. When you watch, is it Serafina and E.P. Tombi, and you realize
total theater,
African
right?
model, people singing, dancing, and acting, 3 in 1. Several of them, almost all the actors. You understand? Everybody has a microphone connected, and they sing, they dance. That is what we are talking about. That is an African model, and we need to boldly establish that. Other than that, our education is still after the Western model. It is dual.
Which Kwame Nkrumah was against right from the start, right?
Exactly.
So coming back to what Dr. Fiabeju was saying, looking at it from the broader picture, can we also bring it closer? Because, of course, even within music, when somebody specializes or when somebody majors in music, the person does not necessarily specializes in all areas in music.
Exactly.
So there are different areas that a person picks up. So in that sense, is it possible to pick, of course, as we are saying, streamline various topics or various courses that will be significant to that particular role to make the person come out with this particular certificate?
Exactly.
Maybe special, what do you call it? Special, there is a course like that, special something. I don't know. But anyway, moving forward from that. Okay, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, so I think I keep telling my students that, I mean, they shouldn't be too fixated about certificates. Yes, the paper is good, the certificate is good. Whether it is certificate in music or total arts or fine arts, it's good. You see, but the real thing is what you have acquired, the skill you have learned, what you have learned throughout the 4 years of staying in the university. That is most important, because that is what will open doors for you. That is what will show the difference between you and someone else doing another program outside the School of Performing Arts. You understand? So what the Uncle T is talking about as an African model is really not an African model. Because you see, the Serafina example he made, we should not forget that there are exceptional people who are extremely gifted all around. They can dance, they can sing, they can play lots of instruments and all that. And you'll be surprised that for the Serafina production, the cast were purposely selected. They chose people who were all around, so to say. You understand? But if we want to insist and compel people to do everything within the performing arts, I mean, it will be quite problematic. So you raise an issue, for example, when it comes to music. Music is very broad. I mean, even when it comes to instruments, there is the seprewa, there is the xylophone, there is the piano, there is the drums, and all that. Are we going to say that the students should have a taste of all these within the limited period of time? So the student must, by all means, specialize in one.
Exactly.
You understand?
Exactly.
Yes. So that after school, he knows that that is his expertise. That is what he has learned. You understand? So that maybe I'm not getting the total. the total
I mean, of course, it's a discussion. So
the total theater thing is somebody who is well vested in music, dance, and drama. Drama is not just about acting. There are people in drama who are set designers and all that. It doesn't mean that you necessarily have to be well vested in all of them. The drama is the same way. A musician is a musician. If I'm a flutist, I'm a musician. If I am a pianist, I am a musician. If I am a singer, I am a musician. Do you understand? So you can have models in there that the person can access. Dance, music, drama. And then the person will come out as a total theater personnel. You understand what I'm saying? So if you say that Serafina, the cast, were purposefully selected, the same way, Ipi Tombi, they were purposefully selected. That means that there are certain people in our society who have come to the School of Performing Arts, but because we don't have that model, they have gone through the school. You remember Amedo? Right, I remember Amedo.
Yeah.
You know, Amedo was a guitarist.
Yeah.
Could play the guitar perfectly well. He did choreography. I never knew Amedo was a guitarist until Amedo had left the school and gone. Then I was told Amedo was, so if I, who was teaching choreography, knew that Amedo was that, and there was a course like Total Theater, Amedo would have come out. He did drama. He acted in some of the plays together with Benedictus. He did choreography in dance. That music aspect, he never touched a guitar in the School of Performing Arts and left. You understand? So if you had a certificate like that, that is a typical example of what I'm talking about. Total theater that belongs to us as Africans. This is our area, and we should have that. You understand?
Okay. Thank you.
In separate tracks.
Again, this total theater concept is Eurocentric, if you ask me, because in our traditional,
of course, you can say that because it was probably theorized by them.
All right. Okay.
But we have
ours. Okay. All right. So I was actually going to go into
ours is a big grumba.
Yeah. Right. That's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah, Ebibi Grow. So Ebibi Grow in translating that into English is
total theater.
Okay, total. I mean, I was trying to do the literal translation. So how would you do the
black man's play?
Yeah, black man's play.
Black man's play.
All right. So I was actually going to go into Kwame Nkrumah's idea of the economic gains at the end of the day, but I think time is also fast spent, so we're gonna open up for anybody who has a question. I saw Ivy's hand first, very early in the discussion. So Ivy, if you're ready. Is she still here? I'm not sure. Okay. Anyway, so anybody who wants to come in should just unmute yourself and then go ahead with your question.
Yeah, so I see Sunudo requesting to say something.
Yeah, Sunudo.
Yes, thank you.
Welcome.
Sorry for my voice. I'm a bit tired.
Oh, sorry.
So listening to the conversation, two issues for me arise here. It seems to me that one, we are sort of turning Nkrumah into a god, that it is difficult to critique some of these policies. And when I listen to the conversation, it becomes apparent and clear that he didn't succeed. Judging from where we find ourselves today. Of course, this is based on hindsight. So probably we could point some of these flaws out instead of saying that people who were expected to play specific roles didn't live up to expectation. Also, that we think of Nkrumah as a community kind of person, an Africanist, as we put it. And African here represents that notion of community. But then increasingly, when you pay attention to the nuances of the policies he tried to implement, it comes off as a bit, Eurocentric. It stands to me more as reactionary. We can also do it. We can, from that angle. So when I pay attention to what is happening in our art circles, for instance, I don't, it's not surprising for me that we find ourselves there, and that is one. The other thing is, this concept of bringing us all together in the performing arts and what I have a different notion. I think Dr. Febeji highlighted a few of those, particularly when, for instance, Uncle Tariq speaks of, the African theater sort of concept, the agro, the kind of thing. And then you link it back to what these Africans, and I limit it to Ghana because that is what I know. And you increasingly find that within these communities, there is that notion of, the Westerners will call it master, but as Nziwe will say, the mother, when it is drumming, the mother drummer or the master drummer, noting that there are individual specialities in each of these areas. For instance, there could be someone who can dance, aesthetically. When you see these people dance, you're like, oh, this one is a natural dancer. Likewise, you would find someone who would drum, such persons could be considered. So that notion of bringing us together sort of defeats that idea of mastering and being a specialist, so to speak. The Okyeame is a specialist in language, in linguistics. It doesn't mean it doesn't know all of these things. So I subscribe to that notion of, introduce everybody to, all these things. And then as they grow, they decide, look, this is where I can best find, and I build on those things. It doesn't also mean that, like the Kwaku Boateng example, Uncle Tariq, that when you are done with this whole educational praxis, you cannot combine all the other things you learned. So I think increasingly, if it has to be the pedagogy, what we teach these students, whether it brings them to solve our communal problems, whether we are teaching them to go overseas, that is what the problem I think is. So we have to pay attention to some of these things. And, this whole fetches of when you want to or have to develop a course, it has to take forever. It brings us back. So some of these issues are what we should be paying attention to, satisfying or solving, training students to fit within our environment and how they solve our practical needs. That is when we can then say, look, this is what we have localized within a global community. My thoughts. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Sunudo. That was interesting. So
well said. But if I may, I think I like his contribution, but I just have an issue with the aspect of saying we are making Nkrumah a god, and all that. Yeah, of course. You can't blame us because in the history of our country, this is the only person who was able to champion or to lead us into such a course, having this vision and mindset and a destination that he would have wanted us to go with our arts and culture. So you cannot blame us for that. Yes, like we are saying, I think from hindsight, we've seen that he didn't really get to achieve his objectives. And it's because for some of the policies, they were not really clear. For example, locally, he was bent on, moving the performing arts, developing the performing arts and all that. At the same time, he's talking about African unity, for example. So you see that there was no direct focus. And so what was the policy about our local arts and culture. What is the role of that, for example? How does it feed into the larger goal of African unity and all that? That was missing, you understand? So the policy, yes, was good, but analyzing it and implementing it was really problematic. For example, I mentioned earlier that for him, he wanted us to use the arts and culture as a tool to, for example, create wealth. The lessons, the morals that we have in there, we learn them to better our lives. So, for example, there's this folk song of the Somanya Okrobo people. This is a folk song. We sing it, we enjoy it, we appreciate it. We appreciate the aesthetic and arts, and for art's sake, just for what it is. But there are values that this song is teaching us to make hay whilst the sun shines. You understand? To save something when you have it in abundance, because there will be a time that you will be in need. Then you can draw on your reserve, for example. You understand? The Agbaja dance, we just see the movement and we appreciate it, the aesthetics and all that. But there is a hidden meaning to it, which deals with conflict resolution, for example. So when you are dancing, you have to pull the two people, you move left. When you are ending, you move left, right. You take a step forward with your partners, then you bow. So it means in conflict resolution, for example, you don't take sides. You understand? You try to be as fair as possible. So at the end of the day, I mean, everybody will be okay with the process. So these are just a few of the hidden values that we could learn from our rich culture and arts, which is missing in our present day usage of our arts and culture. Thank you.
You know what?
No.
I tend to disagree with you people a bit when you say that Nkrumah did not succeed. We have an African studies that has been established since. We have a School of Performing Arts, which started as music and drama and has moved on to become music, dance, and drama. And we are even thinking of including film now, which has become a problem, man. You understand? Which Nkrumah even started. But you see, I think that when we say that Nkrumah did not succeed, I think that we are underestimating what he has created, for us to build on. Perhaps we have faith, not him. Because I was going to talk about Reggie Rockstone, okay, his father, Saint Osei, and his contribution to the nation, which all started with Kwame Nkrumah.
Okay.
I think in the early 60s, 1961, 62 or so thereabout, Nkrumah visited Akwetia. And when he visited, he was in his car. He normally wears his kente. And then is it Tunica Dalmatica or whatever you call it. And he was in his car waving at the people. And Reggie Rockstone's father was an indigene of Akwetia. He was an artist, small boy artist, who had created Nkrumah in his kente cloth. And he has created a model of the car in which Nkrumah sits. And so somebody carried him on his shoulder as Nkrumah was passing and waving at the people. And Reggie's father carried the facsimile of the car model that he had done of Nkrumah. And Nkrumah, in the process, saw it and then asked them to bring the boy. So they sent the boy to him. He looked at it and said, this guy is very talented. Took the guy's details. So when he went to Accra, he sent an emissary to go and bring the boy. They brought Reggie's father, gave him scholarship, went through middle school, gave him scholarship abroad to UK to go and further his education. That is how come we created Brass. Reggie's father created what we call Brass, okay? A fashion design center called Brass, Saint Osei, Brass, okay? And because of that, his going to UK, he gave birth to Reggie Rockstone. And Reggie created a whole paradigm in the music industry. Okay, just because Nkrumah was so much interested in the art. And that is one example of some of the things that Nkrumah has done that has changed the course of this nation forever. So Reggie, through his link with the UK and all that, involvement in rap music and all that, created what we call hip hop today. And today, see, you understand? So in the interview with Halifu, in Halifu's book, he mentioned that. You understand? So Nkrumah, when we say he failed or he did not succeed with the arts, I beg to differ on that one. Perhaps we failed him by not pushing his legacy forward that much. Okay, but people have done productions and people have done collaborations and all that. Lost Fisherman, these are big productions that people have done. You understand? But today we are failing them.
Well,
today.
Yeah, Uncle T, yeah, I get you, but you see, in fact, Nkrumah had a lot of scholarships for people, Ebo Taylor and all those people.
Exactly, several of them.
And I agree, even during his state visits to African countries and Europe and all that, he went with musicians, he went with bands. And that is, yeah, I mean, we all understand that. But when you read,
I think Sunudo would want to.
But before Sunu comes, you see, I'm reading from the political, Kwame Nkrumah's political, cultural thoughts and policies. You understand? Nkrumah himself, Nkrumah himself, and I quote, "The Arts Council, which I helped to form with such high hopes, has not, I regret to say, come up to my expectation. It may have had its difficulty, but the truth remains that it has failed to make sufficient impact on Ghana society. It has failed to give people any vision of the rich store of arts and music which we possess. I hope that the Ghana Drama Studio, even if it remains independent, will operate within the framework of the Ghana Arts Council." And this was his speech during the inauguration of the drama studio. So, Uncle T, this is coming from the man himself. And this is page 134 of that book, 133 of that book. Anyone who has it can go and read it. So Nkrumah himself, whilst he was president, saw it and acknowledged the fact that his intention, what he wanted the arts and culture to become, is not what was happening.
I just wish that we had another alternative for Nkrumah and we would have assessed the person, because Nkrumah's vision was huge.
Yes,
you understand?
And we are being measured. We are measuring him by his vision. You see, if you bring your vision and your objectives, people will always measure you by that vision. So he succeeded. Yeah, certain aspects he succeeded, but I think the destination where he wanted us to get to, I'm sure we didn't get there. Probably 66 did.
Of course, I think perhaps within the arts, there were some, successes struck, like establishment of the Institute for African Studies, which now runs even up to now, and of course, the birth of the performing arts. But perhaps also the larger dream is what is left to be desired. But Sunudo, would you want to come in at this point with
thank you very much.
If any other person also have a question, you can lift your hand up and then I will call you after this. Yeah.
So I also wanted to draw Uncle Terry's attention to the notion of having an African institute within an African institution. That buckles me. I think probably, again, I'm speaking with hindsight, thinking through the historical notions of the University of Ghana and what have you. But then I thought it was a wrong, approach to having an African-centered, education. So for instance, instead of an institute in an African studies, he could have, started off with an African language or an African, something. So for instance, in Accra, we could have a Ga department or a Ga faculty, sort of that thing. We could have a sociology that dealt particularly with African, with our Ghanaian way of life. So instead of having that institute, so you are in Africa, you're an African, and you have an institute in your institution. So if you want to study, you want to have an African studies, you want to study something about yourself, you go to this institution and then, of course, it was set up as a research, but it still defeats the notion of the institution itself. There is a European music department, there is an European philosophy, that kind of thinking. And then this is where we dedicate a lot of resources for, African studies. It will make sense, for instance, if you have European studies institution here or an Asian studies institution here, So when you think more broadly about all these things, you want to question whether the policy or the ideas really, succeeded. So I was thinking within those things. And Dr. Fiabeji, my thought on why, or probably why we are making Nkrumah a god is not because of him, of that leadership, but it's because it becomes haram to critique, some of these policies. And sometimes it could even affect your career if you don't take time. So
depending on who is marking, huh?
Ideologies,
Exactly. We bottle these issues in, and we don't have an open discourse. We don't have an open discussion of some of these things. Mm-hmm. It is the same thing that happens in the, in the School of Performing Arts. Yes, this is where we are coming from, but where do we want to go? We don't ask these questions. Is it really important that for the School of Performing Arts to have as its mission or as its aim to be, that well thought, process of Africanness in there, to be having all these, European centered and all these conversations we don't have, and that I think is the bane of, our institution. For the music department, for instance, it beats my imagination that we don't have a BFE. Of course, theoretically there is BFE, but then we don't have, a BFE program in the music. Both the BFA and the BA do the same thing because one person thought, exactly the point I am trying to. So these are the kinds of conversations we need to have. And, if we are saying this is what has happened over the years, so it should be so, we would end up, not influencing or not causing the change we want, this, institution to cause. And of course, we can use Nkrumah's policy as the base from where we branch off. Mm-hmm. But then we shouldn't be coerced in thinking that Nkrumah's policy was foolproof. And then that was, so everything about the School of Performing Arts, the conversation always centers around Nkrumah. But where do we depart from that, that point of view? And that is really my argument when I say we shouldn't make him, a god, particularly within this discourse we are having. Mm. Also, when there is this conflicting image, when I read Nkrumah, for instance, in essence, you can hear the Africanness in there, but then in practice you see more of Europeanness in. For instance, one is the national anthem, and then two is a national symphony orchestra. I find that and apologies to anybody who is attached to that, but then I find that not so representing our musical sense. If we should have a national orchestra, properly so called, then it should be within the veins of what Danso Abiem did. That represents us more as a people. Again, if you want a national anthem, that which speaks to our soul, again, apologies to the elites as we find ourselves. But I think Ephraim Mahmoud's composition of Young Ara Assassin speaks more in terms of rhythm, in terms of language. It speaks more to our collective, identity than the God bless her, which is strictly in 2/4. How do they call it? Excesses from our colonial masters.
Yeah.
So that is what I was thinking.
Okay, a quick question from your point. I know, there has been discussion on national language and stuff like that. Do you think that it was perhaps maybe problematic to come up with a language that belonged to Ghana, looking at the various, ethnic groups, and of course the languages that belong to the various ethnic groups, and the fact that there wasn't a meeting point to say that, okay, this language would have been, preferable to represent our national anthems and all that. So through that, they had to go by English, or it could have still been established. And of course, looking at this whole idea of whether Kwame Nkrumah, was very staunch in his ruling, whether, of course, when we say that we're talking about being autocratic and all that, do you think that he could have stood his ground to say, okay, the whole idea of Pan-Africanism and all that, coming to my country, I want to lead by example by actually standing on my grounds to say, let's use this language or that, rather than
I will take it from this angle. Akrachi for it does. And when you read our history,
yeah,
they appear to have shaped, what we now find ourselves to be. And again, it comes back to that idea of Nkrumah and what he wanted to do as to what he was doing. Let's also be mindful that Ghana was born, in 1957. So that Ghana is not before 1957. The conversation we should have, and quite passionately, is, do we want English to serve us? What does it also mean? Or could we have national languages, as happens in, for instance, South Africa?
Yeah.
So what are the dominant languages, not dialect, languages? And could these be used as our national language? So that in Parliament, it shouldn't be a case where so you can't represent the people. You understand?
Yeah.
So that conversation we should have. Again, can we lay it on Nkrumah and say, maybe his language policy didn't work? That is a different conversation. But we should move on from there and have the conversation and say, look, this is what we want. Again, are we willing to have this discourse dispassionately? Are we willing not to personalize some of these things? But yeah, I think we should have some. For instance, you are in Lagos. Foreign students come to write or study in Lagos. And after, there is nothing to show the person lived in Ghana, on the Ghana land. I mean, it should reflect in your thesis. I wrote my thesis in English, but then it was a policy that my abstract would be translated into Zulu. And South Africa is not Zulu. You understand? So we can make some of these things and then build on them, but are we willing to do so?
Yeah, can I?
All right. If you want to chip in, that's okay. And also, I think
Dr.
after
Eric
that, Faisal,
touched on.
Come again.
Dr. Eric has touched on some very sensitive areas.
All right. Dr. Eric, if I did not address you properly, please forgive me. I think I was.
Please, I'm Eric. You know me to be Eric. This is doctor business. Please, I beg.
I should adjourn, huh? All right. Okay. So let's. I think I don't. Okay. Yeah. Incoming Dr. Ankoteri is on the line.
So, Eric has touched on some very sensitive areas. You know, as much as I will agree with him on some of the several things that he raised, the issue of language has been argued back and forth.
Yep.
And once we go there, it becomes a slippage. You know, very slippery grounds. We have argued even in the School of Performing Arts. I remember Gordon Kote presented a paper on it and all that. You know, we have argued on it several times. But the issue of African studies, and this is, you know, at the point he himself said that Akrache for those. So the issue of the introduction of African studies at the school, we have to understand the background, where we were coming from. Okay, University of Ghana. When you go there, the at the beginning in 1948, I believe, the first two vice chancellors were white. Okay, so that means that this Eurocentrism was very grounded at the beginning.
And that was even before independence.
Independence.
So yeah.
Okay, so it has taken root. Even today, we were still, until Corona, we were still doing final examination, which some in Europe, I think they've aborted that thing from their, you know, approach to education. You understand? We were still doing it, and we are still even doing it. Okay, so the Eurocentrism is very entrenched, and so Nkrumah probably wanted a way of, you know, coming out. That's how come he established the African studies within an African institution. Okay, where all the languages, you can learn all the foreign languages and learn all the other areas, you know, per the African perspective. But today, when you go there, all right, a lot of them know that, you know, that this thing has not been maintained. You know, of course, the people are complaining that there are a lot of gender studies there now and all that. I stand to be corrected. That's what people have been saying, you know, of late. So, yes, I agree. So he raised some very fantastic ideas, you know, that he talked about the national anthem, the Ifri Mahmoud's own and all that. You know, for us, I think that it has become even more popular than the Ghana national anthem, the chosen one, the English. Yeah, you know, we enjoy that one so much. So I agree with him on those ones, but some of them very slippery. And yes, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't talk about it. I think we need to engage them and engage them, like he's saying, dispassionately, so that we can move forward. It looks as if we have not been able to progress that much, and the young ones who are coming now, I think that we must engage ourselves in a lot more talks, you know, and maybe I would, me as the young leader, because I'm still dancing, I call myself the young leader, would have to try and galvanize us together and make sure that some of these things we try and discuss them and come out with concrete ideas that we can implement. Other than that, we are never going to move, because this all these ideas about Western and African and what is Western and what is African, we still go back to it in various ways. You understand? And it is very difficult, you know, sometimes when you sit down and critically analyze the situation, that we are not trying to create our own models, that we can say that this is purely African, something that we can, and I'm not talking about just a profession. I'm talking about something that can be a profession and still become marketable out there, that people will be prepared to buy into and pay for. You know, that is where we have to go, you know, in trying to churn out all these students and what have you. So yes, I think that there's been a very interesting conversation.
Okay. I think Faisal had. Oh, okay.
Sorry. Yeah. So we talked about language. There was the Institute of Languages. I mean, established the School of Languages, local languages, and languages are said, and it is still there. You understand? But the question is, how many of us are interested in going to learn from there? Now we need people to learn local Ghanaian language in the universities so they can come and teach, but nobody is willing, because it is not the ish. If you are doing ever in the university, I mean, people look down on you and all that. A bit about the symphony orchestra. I think that Well, that is Eric's opinion, but I think there's nothing wrong with it because, I mean, you live in a country, like he said, they are the elites. The elites, they've been exposed to certain kind of lifestyle and all that. For most of them, it is the orchestral music and all that they know and that they can relate to. So
quite unfortunately.
Yes, but there's nothing wrong. Otherwise, then we should also stop speaking the English language. The guitars that came from outside and all that, we should say we are independent. So hold on. Let me say, when you were speaking, I didn't interject. I waited to just allow me
you are behaving
to
like
have my time. Allow me to have my time. So you see, yes, there's nothing wrong. But the beauty is that they found a way of Africanizing it by composers now being conscious to compose music specifically for that kind of group or that orchestra. So you have Akit Sonata and all these things, indigenizing the symphony orchestra. So you go there these days, they don't play the usual Bach and whatever and all that, but they play lots of compositions, art music compositions from our own composers. Yes, so I mean, the fact that we say we are independent doesn't mean we are leaving out or throwing away everything European or everything Western and putting together everything African. I don't think that is the case. That is my bit on. Okay.
So do you have a response to that, or we can?
Yeah, I just wanted to draw his attention to the notion that, something to represent the nation isn't something to represent a few elites. And I think that is a problem. Because of my taste, I think we should teach opera in the department of music. Because of my taste, I think we should, So I don't think it's about a few individuals, but then what represents us as a nation? I think that would have been Nkrumah's main mission, to find a way of bringing us all together. But again, where I point out that flaw is where he allows himself to be overtaken by the UGCC elite, into thinking, let's have this tasteful thing that Obi Ayebi. So and I think that flaws, something that represents us nationally. Why don't we have a national ballet dance form?
Yeah, because they don't study ballet. They were not studying ballet, but they were studying theory of music. They were studying theory of music in the schools, in Achimota and all that, art music. And that is that's the space they can compose for.
When you read
all the
texts, you would learn that there was ballroom, there was waltz, and Angoteri will tell you there was even high life dance, which was just a mimicking of all these things. So the point of them not studying becomes flawed in that position.
No, they were not interested.
All right. I think Faisal has had his hand up. Faisal, can you unmute yourself and then bring your question so that we can wrap up?
Yes, I'm here and I'm really enjoying the conversation. I just want to say that I really agree with most of the issues that has been raised, but I have some kind of contention with Sunu, my senior brother, who has really inspired me in so many ways. Sunu, I just want to know, not really know per se, but when you say that these our arts, when we talk about Nkrumah, it's more or less like looking at it from a reactionary point of view. But I also want to point to a fact that, like Ankiteri said, in fact, my response has been partly answered by Ankiteri, because we should consider where Nkrumah was coming from, the political agenda that he was wielding in order to change the terrains of the country, and also his political, ideals. University of Ghana was basically built on Eurocentric ideas, and he needed to change the course of, envisioning the future. Of course, it is very important to establish something. In many countries, in many higher institutions, it is not wrong to find studies about, for example, in US, many universities started with American studies because they saw the importance of teaching American values. So if University of Ghana was changing from colonial ideals to the Ghanaian ideals, the best place to start from was a higher institution in order to establish, education that orients the African mindset. And then you should understand that Nkrumah, his political emancipation, his Africanist ideals was actually to promote the African ideals. And where to start from wasn't in the village, it was in the higher institution. So it wasn't a wrong course to claim that, Nkrumah's policies started on the wrong foot. I was actually waiting, as a heritage scholar yourself, I was actually waiting for you to chip in with some of the things that Nkrumah did in terms of heritage, because it wasn't just about, establishing Institute of African Studies. We should also think about the museums, why he brought in museums in a way to bring all the cultures together to promote the African, the Ghanaian value, the Ghanaian, heritage to the world. So it is not basically, for me, I don't think that Nkrumah is untouchable. Of course, he is touchable, but we should also appreciate where the kind of granting that he laid, and then a continuation that we have failed, or some of our ancestors, our professors, have failed to continue. But it is not wrong, and when we talk about Uncle Terry was talking about, is it the Ebibi Groma? What did he Professor? I'm sorry, Dr. Abdallah's concept.
Ebibi Grow.
We should. It is not a wrong idea, because look, I have been always asking myself, and this question just came after I left Ghana to study outside. Why do we call the department dance department or music department? Which other language, which other name can we give to those departments? Dance, music, drama. How can we give them different names that resonate with the Ghanaian values? Because when you talk about dance, and if as a dance scholar, there's a changing understanding of the usage of the word dance, because it tends to sort of draw on Eurocentric ideas. So how do we, because in some cultures, they don't say dance. Dance is not a thing. It has a different understanding, because, we are looking at it from structured ways of moving. No, it's different. It's more than that. So how can we actually talk about dance without using the word dance? You understand? So when we talk about, Uncle Terry mentioned Ebibi Grow, I was actually happy, because it's sort of ground the African philosophy. It is not just the acting, the performance per se, but the performance is embedded in a certain philosophical values that speaks to the African, understanding. And if we can look at it from that way, it's just a start. It is not the end. You understand? It's a way of envisioning the progress of the African values. And that is basically what Nkrumah wanted to, push. Nkrumah didn't say, this is what I want, this is how it should be forever. No, because culture is dynamic, it grows. And as we have a good foundation, definitely with time, things will change. So this is just a way of chipping in. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Nice one.
All right. Okay. I'm not sure whether Sunudo will want to respond to anything, but
it shouldn't be about Sunu. So
because he actually responded to some of the things that you said. So I wanted to know whether you have a response to that or you don't.
I have a response, but let's keep the conversation going.
Okay,
because,
all right. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So we are like an hour and 40 minutes already, and I think it's getting late. So it's been an interesting conversation. Of course, this is brought by African Live Arts. African Live Arts, we connect African art forms and tourism to the world. Wrapping up, what would be our as it were, one particular thing that we believe Kwame Nkrumah's ideals actually created the okay, let me rephrase it. What would we say that, in conclusion, right? What would we say that it's one of the things that is still sustaining through the ideals of Kwame Nkrumah in our various departments? So whether being in the music or being in dance, what is it that has sustained even as of now that we can actually, progress with moving forward? I'm not sure whether my question is clear, but
okay. So let me take it because I have to go now.
All right.
And I have an invitation somewhere and I have to pass through quickly.
All right.
Okay, so what I believe, I personally do not at all think and will never think that Kwame Nkrumah failed. But I think that he has a legacy, which I am also part of today, where he started off. He established the School of Performing Arts, established African Studies. I have schooled in African Studies, even though I'm still waiting 2 years on. I don't, but I have schooled there. And I've schooled at the School of Performing Arts. I am teaching at the School of Performing Arts. And it is because of the legacy that Nkrumah left. I have introduced the teaching of pop dance at the Department of Dance Studies. Introduced the teaching of pop dance theory and practice at the Department of Dance Studies. It is all because somebody had a vision and established it. It is up to us now to take it further. So if we are not able to do it, it is our fault. So yes, he established something that I can see with my eyes, just like John Mahama built the hospitals that I could see. And people were saying that they were Photoshop. Sorry for the digression, but I can see what Nkrumah has established. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I am part of it. Batons have been passed on from generation to generation. We have churned out several students who hitherto would not have learned traditional dance because, listen, if it's not or weren't for the School of Performing Arts and its other derivatives like what we have in Winneba and in Cape Coast and in Kumasi Tech, a lot of Ghanaian students wouldn't have learned our traditional dances. Where they have to take what they have learned to is what we now have to look at and look at properly. But for me, it is still continuation of building character or the African personality of Kwame Nkrumah's ideals. It is still that. We have several students who are learning traditional dances in the Department of Dance Studies. You understand? Where they have to take it to, the next level, where they have to use it, is where we have to look at and see how best, if not at all, we are trying to create that character or that African personality in them. And for me, I think that Nkrumah, even though he thinks or he has said that he has not achieved, he will be very happy in his grave today for such students learning all these traditional dances, traditional songs at the Department of Dance Studies. Fantastic.
Okay. All right.
All right. Dr. Thank you. So I agree. I agree with everything that Terry has said. I mean, everything. So I would look at it from the institution's point of view. Though your question was within the school, right? Basically within the school. And I mean, like I said, I agree with everything. In the music department, for example, we still have courses in African music, Ghanaian traditional music, and all that. We have the Seprewa ensemble, which is a new addition, a Seprewa instrument. I mean, we still teach the xylophone. We still teach the African drums and all that. And I think that it speaks, it's a continuation of what the policy is. We teach guitar, we teach trumpets and piano and all that. That doesn't make us less an African institution, because the piano, for example, has become part of us, and there's no way we can say let it go. So I would say that it is a remodeling, for example, of aspects of the Kwame Nkrumah's policy, which which is being implemented in the department. But I think the larger problem or issue where we need to going forward is to look at the relevance of our arts and culture in our society, in our present day society, how relevant it is. These are things we need to interrogate. I know now the idea and the focus is monetizing it, commercializing the art, commercializing the culture and all that. It's good because people need to make ends meet. People need to make a living and all that. But we need to go beyond that and look at its relevance in our society, how it will shape us, how we can use it as a tool for individual development and nation building. That should be the focus. And I think the state itself should up its game in terms of funding these cultural and art institutions, because now the private sector has taken over and everything is commercialized. The CNCs, for me, are not doing enough. They will tell you that, resources are not coming and all that, but they need to up their game so that we can feel their position and their relevance, in our arts and culture industry.
All right, great.
Maybe Kwe just wanted to add a contribution to what Doc said.
Okay, all right.
I for everybody, nice one.
Dr.
Fiaweji, I was saying that yes, with the piano, yes, it's good. We are playing, but it is what we play on, what we use the piano to do. So Nketia, for instance, was composing an African or Ghanaian compositions on the piano. So it's not just the Western idea of the piano that we are teaching it and playing maybe Mozart or playing other things, but what are we playing on? So thank you. Okay. Yeah, I didn't want people to see, but Uncle Terry has got
before we run away, real quick, I'm sure we know Nanaya Bafo Ewa.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He sent a question on our Facebook channel. He says, what has SPA done to reinvigorate or expand the concept of African personality through our practices and conceptual exploration for over 50 years? Can we point to one development concept that can be contributed to the SPA? And he also says, can we find the concept of African personality in our course outline, and do we consciously pursue that in our teaching and discussions with students? I never heard the term in my time at school until the late Prof. Niate told me during my master's. I was devoid of this term for 5 years. So those are some of the contributions that he brought in, mainly, I don't know whether to use the word Africanizing, our studies, as Uncle Terry was saying, but that is, some questions that perhaps we could be thinking about. I don't know whether there is any one-line response to that or not.
Okay, so
we already wrapping up.
What he says, I don't know his understanding of the African personality, but Ebibi Gro immediately he asked the question. Ebibi said it. Ebibi Groma, all right. Ebibi Gro in itself is a concept that, and for me, that is why I am saying that we should have some kind of student that we churn out, that we can say that this is an African ideology in the form of total theater personnel. You understand? These are things that are more or less embedded in Nkrumah's ideas, but which we have not been able to establish in ourselves. But we are still using the Eurocentric ways. But the African personality is somebody who is conscious of the fact that he or she is an African, dresses African, speaks African, ideas, the way of thinking is African. That is the African personality. Okay. To a large extent, we have to know that there are forces and they are coming in different ways against us. I had wanted to raise this issue earlier on, but I just pushed it aside because it was going to prolong the talk. Okay. There are internet, what have you, Instagram. These are machinations that the Western world have introduced in there, and they are pushing all kinds of agendas. Okay, that is more or less confusing our children. And so, as we try to establish this African personality in our own small way, these things are trying to look. I speak to students in the classroom, and everybody wants to carry a wig, which is, I mean, you understand what I'm saying? Now their eyelashes are like from here to Zongo. You understand? So when you are trying to push in your own small way the agenda of the African personality and what have you, they are going on the shortcuts, Instagram and whatever, and they are following people in Europe and in the US, and they are following Western things. You understand? Doing all kinds of pawns. They call it contours. Contours. Women are painting their face and they're calling it contours. You understand? Anyway, I have to go.
All right. Okay.
Thank you very much for coming.
I'm not sure whether you had one line to wrap it up, Dr.
Well,
thank you very much, Uncle Terry.
Okay, yeah, what I want to say is that this whole concept of African personality needs to be redefined, taking into consideration our modern, situations. Yes, and I think when we do that, we would try and we'll be on spot in finding the solution to getting to the destination. That is all I have.
All right. So thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Most grateful for connecting with us. Miss G says decolonizing the African curriculum. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so thank you very much, everybody, for joining in. Next week, I'm going to be posting our next discussion. And of course, this is from African Live Arts. We connect African art forms and tourism.
Don't end the meeting now.
To individuals across the world. You have a question?
No, it's just Eric Bafwe's question. I just want you to ask him that during his time as a lecturer in the department, what did he do to promote the question, to promote the African,
But he was a student though.
Yeah, he was a student and then he became a lecturer. So
Oh, you mean when he was a lecturer? Perhaps another time we can send him the link and then he will be able to join us. But I don't know whether he can hear us and then add our comments though. But oh, okay, yeah. But anyway, he says the concept of African personality, as explained by Uncle Terry, is watered down. It is more than just looking like an African. We must do better and explore the tenets of Nkrumah's conscientism, his political cultural agenda, and its future implication, more than just trivializing the term. All right, so that is from Bewa. All right, so hopefully we'll continue this conversation. I know that I had a lot of questions, but definitely our time is really gone, and we needed to also
I have a question
for other people to come in. So
I have a question.
we're going to run away from social media, and then we can have our own caucuses from here. So let me just wrap up, and then so
okay, you can end the social media. I have a question.
So in a moment, let's see. Okay, so thank you very much. Connect with us on African Live Art, and then see you next time. Bye-bye.